Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community, or at least the closest version of it I'm going to do for a while. So for those of you who like these type of videos, please remember to click like down below. It would be greatly appreciated. But over to the point. One of the things that I have a lot of people notice, I notice, a lot of you notice, that a lot of the very, very popular evidence-based fit pros who are out here, right? And I'm not going to necessarily name names because I actually appreciate a lot of their work. But the thing is, you see a lot of them, and some of them I've had debates with in the past, are not particularly big or strong. And I mean even for a natural. In other words, there's a lot of you guys out there who are bigger and stronger and more jacked than a lot of these guys. You're like, if they know so much, why do they struggle to get results? Why do they struggle to get results? And a lot of it has to do with things like intrinsic motivation, and I'm just going to say it, laziness. Laziness and work ethic. Because what people need to remember at the end of the day, getting jacked, while knowledge is helpful, knowledge is extremely helpful. Understanding complex training variables and movement patterns is helpful for getting big and strong. However, one of the things a lot of you have noticed, how many people do you see out there who probably have an 80 or an 85 IQ, and we all know these people, who are still jacked? Okay? Who are still jacked. How many guys out there do you know who have 18-inch arms and can rep out 315 on the bench press, rep out heavy weighted pull-ups, who are slow? They're below average cognitively. We all know a few of them. All of us do. Right? Do you really think those people, when you talk to them, about what they know about training, do you really think that they have any sort of deep understanding of biomechanics or stimulus to fatigue ratios? You think they do at all? No. Watch any of them train. Those same guys who I just mentioned, watch them train. How many of them train like a beast? They eat a lot, and they train really, really hard. And notice that even though they do a lot of stuff wrong, maybe it's not efficient, maybe they didn't make gains at the rate that they could have. It might have taken them longer, but they get there just through sheer hard work without really knowing that much. Come over conversely. How many evidence-based fit pros do we know who are smaller and weaker than those same guys that we all think of and know? A lot of them. Now, before guys say, well, what about gear? Well, a lot of those jack dudes are natural. And a lot of your evidence-based fit pros who are tiny still use gear. We've covered this. There's at least one of them we've covered. I'm not going to name names. His gear pass was documented on a forum. He under his real login, he used a bunch of super drill and stuff. He's still tiny and weak. In spite of having an advanced degree in the area and being a coach himself, he's tiny. He's used gear. A lot of them use gear and lie about it. It's normal to use gear in the industry. The vast, overwhelming majority of people in this industry use something. Okay, you can't use that as a cop-out. Say, well, that must be the reason. Well, not necessarily. Because we had that perfect example I just gave. Literally fat-free mass index of like 22 with a history of gear use and over a decade of consistent training. It's their career. This is what they do. They're still small. So what's going on? It's that they're lazy. And I'm not necessarily saying that as being mean, but I'm pointing out that that is the issue. A lot of times when you look at these guys, and some of them who have phenomenal knowledge, you look and say, man, this guy really knows what he's talking about. He understands all this stuff about sarcoplasm versus myofibular growth, what variables might impact it, training volumes, maximum recoverable volume, stimulus to fatigue ratios, all this stuff. You're like, wow, the guy really, really knows what he's talking about. And then you see him, and you're like, well, he's really small. Then you watch him train. It's like, oh, that's why. That's why. Because the problem we have is that a lot of people in this particular field because they know they're lazy. They know they lack motivation. They struggle to bring any sort of motivation or hard training consistently to their training, so they basically look for biohacks. These are people who are dedicating their life to trying to find a way to get around their own laziness. And it shows when they train. It's like, you know what? Instead of me training hard, maybe if I just find the right angle on the lat pull down cable to get just the right angle, I can build my lats without training that hard, because I can maybe just get 5% more efficiency of the muscle fiber recruitment, and then I won't have to get really strong on and do tons of rows and weighted pull-ups, because man, that's hard. I don't like that's hard. If I just do this, I can find the right angle. Okay, if I can just find the right biomechanic angle to maximize muscle fiber recruitment with a cable in my pecs, I won't have to do a bunch of heavy bench pressing and weighted dips. Okay, because that stuff's hard. And then you watch the way a lot of them train. Their training is just ridiculous little, well, if I just try to do this and get this little angle with my calf. Lightweight, no intent. They're not even really pushing hard even with the weight they're trying to use. And they come in and they just kind of fluff and pump a little through some movements. They don't take anything to failure. There's no real struggle. There's no strain there. Right? They don't lift any maximal heavy weights. They don't really do anything to failure. Probably most of theirs close to failure. If you really watch it, they're like 5 reps away. Okay. Their idea of, well, let me get within 1 rep of failure, you're like, man, you have 5 reps in reserve easily. With good form. They just simply do not push themselves. They don't push themselves. Because they look for the fluffiest exercises. And I'm the first one to say, hey, we need to be looking at stimulus to fatigue. There's a reason I'm really strict on pendlay rows. There's a reason I use floor presses. There's a reason I will use a hip thrust, very heavy hip thrust. I do my work sets way over 400 pounds on all that sort of stuff. I'll use a hip thrust instead of volume squats to build my quads and hamstrings and glutes. You bet I will. Stimulus versus fatigue. And I'll do that as a power lifter. But there's a difference between saying, well, let me look at stimulus versus fatigue versus let me just be really lazy and maybe I can find the right angle on a cable movement that hopefully it will let me get around my laziness. And that's usually what it is that these are people who that's what they do. If I can just do everything efficiently and perfectly, maybe I don't have to train hard. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Because then what happens? What happens when you see the guys who take all of that same knowledge and they really train hard? They are beasts. Okay? People say, what do you mean? I don't know. Take someone like Chris Duffin. There's a perfect example. There's an example of an evidence-based fit pro who trains like a beast, who also is kind of a genetic freak. Okay? Yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens when you mix good genetics, extreme scientific knowledge and engineering background with a ridiculous work ethic. Okay, you get 900-pound squatters who look like gorillas. So that's just what happens, guys. But the point is, generally speaking, a lot of these evidence-based fit pros, that is the problem, is that they try to find a way to biohack their way around getting in and doing hard work. And the problem is that their followers follow it blindly. And you'll see lots of their followers who follow a ton of it. And you're like, well, you're still tiny and weak. You might have a little bicep, a little delt. But they're overall, they lack thickness, they lack size, they lack strength. And it's because there's no way you're going to just find the right way, the right angle or plane on a movement to get around repping out 400 pounds. Okay, you're simply not going to replicate that. And I'm not saying we shouldn't care about those things, because we do and we should, and I care about those things. Believe me, guys. I do think about muscle activation, stimulus to fatigue. Those are big, important deals to me, especially for my volume training. You bet they are. They cannot replace hard work. And if you are lazy and you lack work ethic, and you train the way a lot of these guys try to train to get around it, in an intelligent manner. And even if you use just a little bit of small amounts of gear, you're still going to be tiny and weak. Okay, that's just a simple reality of it. It doesn't work. Doesn't work. And that's the reason you see that with a lot of them. And hopefully you guys have probably picked out at least a couple of names based upon what I said without having to go there. But that is the reason. They literally train as if they're not even there. They're completely zoned out when they train. They don't take anything even close to muscle failure, which again, muscle failure is not a requirement for growth. They're afraid to lift heavy weights. They're afraid of actually using the biggest, most effective movements and doing any volume with them. Right? They are lazy. And that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. And in the best world, you want to train really, really hard while still doing so intelligently. That is your winning combination. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.